Hello, everyone, and welcome to the London School of English Live. This free interactive business English lesson will be perfect for you if you work in international teams or across borders on project management and need to improve your business English. You will learn 25 useful phrases for international project managers with our expert English language trainer, Jon Dyson. And in this session today, we encourage you to participate in our live chat next to the video and share your comments and questions throughout the live stream. We will answer them during our question and answer session at the end. Here with us today, we also have our Director of Sales and Marketing, Jo Burns, who has vast experience of managing international projects. She will take part in our Q&A session too. And before we start with the main content, Jo will share some information about our English training in London and online. Jo, over to you.
Thank you, Olga. Good evening, everyone. Good morning. It's a different time of the world where you are. Yes, I think it's worth highlighting that obviously the key, as Jon will tell you, to good project management is communication. And actually, a lot of people feel anxious when they are delivering international projects because they are worried about whether or not their English will be perfect when they're called upon to tell a project management group about their progress, whether or not what they are wanting to present as information will be clear, and so on. And so our business and professional courses really help with that. We do a lot of work on presentations, on how to communicate information about data and about facts, about how to make sure that what you're saying is clear if the people that you're working with are not subject matter experts, and about how to make sure that you are delivering the information in a way that people will understand. So we do a lot of work on that in our BP courses. I thought it was just worth mentioning it.
Great. Thank you very much, Jo, for talking about our business and professional English courses. And Jon, now over to you for the main content.
Thanks, Jo. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, good morning, wherever you happen to be. I'm very excited about this talk because I know it's going to help you to improve your English use for something which is a very important part of business communication nowadays. A very large amount of business activity is project-oriented nowadays, and many of these projects are international in nature. What I wanted to do was to start off with a couple of definitions of a project. So the first one we see is taken from a website called My Management Guide, and it says that a project, its definition is a specific finite activity that produces an observable and measurable result under certain preset requirements. Okay, so a very precise definition there, and we can certainly pick out finite as meaning it's a temporary thing. It doesn't go on forever. And also the questions of observable and measurable results. So that's a very important part of project management, obviously, is being able to observe and measure the success of the project. The second definition comes from a body called the Project Management Body of Knowledge, and their definition is a temporary endeavor or task with a beginning and an end, and it must be used to create a unique product, service, or result. So again, very much the focus there being on it being finite. It has a limited period of time, a limited life cycle, if you like, and the fact that you are producing something, you have a product at the end, or what is called a deliverable, which we will see later on. And all of these refer to sort of the three main, if you like, limitations or constraints around project management, which tend to be time, money, and quality, with resources being a part of that, of course. So we'll start off looking at our expressions with what we call the kickoff meeting. And the reason we call it that is, as you can see from the picture, it's taken from football. So the kickoff means when the first player kicks the ball to the second player and the game begins. So kickoff meeting is a very, very important part of any project. especially international ones, but for any really. And what we'll do is work through a short introduction by a project manager who's going to talk. Let's imagine this is the first couple of minutes of the project kickoff meeting. So this person is giving an introduction, and this person uses a lot of terminology which we can look at in a little more detail now. So the kickoff meeting. So the project leader begins by saying, hello, everybody, and welcome to the kickoff for the international project. It's great to see so many faces from around the world. So nice positive tone established there. There are several purposes for this get-together. So get-together is also another informal term you can use for a meeting. So firstly, I want to assign roles, responsibilities, and reporting lines. Now, to assign roles means to make a decision about a person for a particular job or responsibility. And reporting lines means who directly manages you and who manages that manager. So the reporting line can also be known as the chain of command in many ways. So it means who do you report to, meaning who are you answerable to directly. Okay, so he moves on to the next part and says, next we need to be absolutely clear about the precise purpose and scope of the project. Okay, so the purpose I think is clear, the objective, the aim, the goal. And the scope means the extent. Is it wide or is it narrow, large or small? The extent of the area or the subject matter that something, the project, is going to deal with. So the purpose and scope of a project is a very, very common expression, as it is specified in the brief. So the brief means the document which outlines the requirements of the project, the goal. So you will normally, a project manager will receive a project brief, which basically is a rather more formal way of saying, this is what we want you to do. And this brief outlines the project schedule and the deliverables. Well, the schedule, I think, is reasonably clear to most people. To outline, yes, it means to describe in general terms the project schedule. So it's basic. Well, the pronunciation can be schedule or schedule. They're both correct. Personally, I prefer schedule. So yeah, it outlines or lists exactly what is going to happen and when it is going to happen as well. And the other word which is key here is the deliverables. The deliverables means what will be provided, what will you deliver, what will be provided as the product of this development process. Because if you like, a project is rather like a development process, in that at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're producing some kind of product at the end. So the project deliverable means what does the project, the person who's sponsoring the project, expect at the end of it. Okay, going back to the opening speech, if time permits, so as you can see, if time permits, we'll also allocate budgets to the various team leaders and establish protocols for authorization of further spending. So to allocate, again, a really important word. What it means is to distribute something, resources. So it might be money, it might be people. In this case, it's money, budgets. Yeah, to distribute them for a specific purpose. Yeah, and the other term which is used is to establish protocols. So to establish protocols means to create a set of accepted practices. So if there is a protocol, you say, what is the protocol? Well, if you wish to, if you wish to make an inquiry, you have to complete an email, you have to send it to this department, and this department will reply to you within 2 days. That is a protocol. So it's not a rule as such, it's more like accepted or best practice. And if you have protocols, of course, you are expected to follow those protocols. Okay, the project manager moves on and talks about the team. He says it's critically important that we establish a collaborative team culture where communication is timely and transparent. Okay, so the team culture, of course, is how the team does things, how it operates, what are the norms within the team. And that in an international project is in itself quite complex, which is something we'll talk about later on in this live stream. And the other term that I put in here is communication is timely and transparent. Two very important words, which are certainly worth learning to use. Timely means done or happening at a favorable or useful time. And it usually means it should be prompt. It should definitely not be something that happens after a long period of time. So something where the time is useful or favorable for something to be done. And transparent communication, well, transparent means you can literally see through it. Yeah. So what it means is that the way in which you communicate means there is no confusion, there are no secrets. And in terms of project activity, as well as communication, it means doing things or taking actions in such a way that people can easily see them, because we all like to know things and we like transparency. Transparency is a very healthy foundation for communication. And again, that has implications for international projects, because, some people say, for example, just an example, the British are not always transparent when they speak. So there is the question of how important it is to be transparent, or sometimes whether it is you have to be culturally sensitive in terms of transparency. So moving on, he says he or she says we are from different backgrounds, countries and cultures, but I'm sure that we can leverage that diversity to achieve great results. Okay, the verb to leverage means to use something to its maximum advantage. So in terms of leveraging diversity, to leverage diversity means that to create an atmosphere which includes everyone, an inclusive workplace, to maximize the talents of every person in the team to achieve the vision and mission of the project. And that means building collaborative relationships, good working relationships with people, regardless of where they are from or their individual differences. So very much a very important trend at the moment is this idea of leveraging diversity. Make the most of difference. Don't see difference as a problem. Okay, and he finishes off the introduction to the kickoff by saying, once we've done all the above, we will have established a project roadmap to guide us towards our destination. Okay, so the destination is obviously the successful ending of the project. And a roadmap, a project roadmap, is normally, as you can see in the picture, it's a kind of graphical, high-level overview of the project's goals and deliverables. And this is normally presented on a timeline, a kind of graphical timeline. Sorry. So as a roadmap that you would read to get from your starting point to your destination, it's rather the same thing. It's so that you can see where you are going and how you are going to get there. So a project roadmap should be simple and not full up of very small details. I think, the other thing I would go back and comment on briefly is to agree unanimously. Now, to agree unanimously means there is no opposition. It means everyone agrees with a particular statement or situation or action. And ground rules. Yes, it's useful just commenting briefly on the expression ground rules, because ground rules mean basic principles on how a group of people should act in a particular context. So in this case, in a project team, you can establish your own ground rules. This is what we will do in our project team. For example, if anyone sends us an email, we will respond within 24 hours. That is a ground rule. So it's very specific to a particular context. It's not rules in general, it's our rules, if you like. Okay, so that we've had a look there at the first 13 expressions connected to, well, more than 13 in many cases, but we've looked at a lot of expressions connected to project management. What we'll do is very briefly move on to times and timings. And this comes in the form of a very short quiz, because really a project can be seen as phases. You plan the project, you prepare it, you execute it, you deliver it, and you monitor the results. But there are certain expressions which are really important to know in terms of times and timings. So if we look at the statement that is made here, it's got several gaps in it, and you have to decide what words you think, prepositions, you need to complete the gaps. So it says the project needs to be delivered on time for the global Christmas advertising campaign. So it is essential we stay schedule to ensure we deliver time according to the deadlines established. We must avoid at all costs falling schedule. So the first case is the preposition, the correct preposition to use here is on time. Yeah. Actually, no. Yes. Sorry. Yes. On time for the global Christmas advertising campaign. That's right. Yeah. So it is essential we stay on schedule. We should say we stay on schedule. Well done, Camille. By the way, welcome to our live stream. So to ensure that we deliver on time according to the deadlines established. So we must avoid at all costs falling, and the word here is behind. So we don't want to fall behind schedule. That's not a good thing. So there are three prepositions that we tend to use when we're talking about time or schedule. The first is in time, which means for an event which is going to occur in the future. The second one, on time, simply means punctually or before or at a particular deadline. And the third expression is to be behind schedule. Yeah. Hello, Karen Garcia from Panama. Nice to have you with us. Yeah. So, and of course, the opposite of falling behind schedule is to be ahead of schedule, which is a good thing, generally speaking. So those are the few references or a few expressions we use referring to times and timing. And now we're going to move on to another short quiz, because there are so many expressions here that I thought we'd divide some of them into a little quiz section. And basically the question here is, which is the wrong word or the wrong expression? So you're going to see a sentence with a gap and then four alternatives, four options. Three of the options are correct. One of them is not. So let's have a look at our first one, which says, we need to develop an or a in case any critical dependencies are not completed on time. So is it plan B, contingency plan, panic plan, or alternative plan? Which one of those four is not correct? Which one is not correct? Hello, Ali from Somalia. Glad you could join us. Any ideas? Which one is not correct? Okay, I think we'll go on with this. The incorrect one is panic plan. Panic plan is not correct, but we can say plan B. We need a plan B. We need a contingency plan. We need an alternative plan. So it's always good to have that. So let's move on to the next one. And this is a word connected to deadlines. It is essential that we all the deadlines. And again, one of these expressions, one of these words is not correct. Meet, hit, get, or observe. Which of those is not correct? One of those is not correct. Meet, hit, get, or observe all the deadlines. Okay, so the answer here is, the wrong one is get. Yeah, so you can't get a deadline. What you can do is meet a deadline, or you can hit a deadline, or you can observe a deadline, all of which means that you do what you need to do before or at the time required. Well done, Diana. You said get. That's the wrong answer, and in this case, the wrong answer is the right answer. Okay, moving on to the next one. In this case, we're talking about people connected to projects, and we're not talking about the people who are in the project team. We're talking about external people. So the project are all the individuals, groups, or organizations who have a direct or indirect interest in the success of the project. And we've got 4 words, and one of them is not correct. Stakeholders, shareholders, sponsors, and owners. So we've got project stakeholders, project shareholders, project sponsors, or project owners. Which one of those is incorrect? Okay, so let's see. The answer to this one is shareholders. Okay, in fact, Giuseppe, stakeholders is correct, in fact. But welcome, and Christian, welcome from Chile. What we use is the word shareholder is only used when we're talking about someone who has a financial participation in a company. So what it means is that their shares equal a participation of money that they have paid to have an interest in the company. Now, if we're talking about general interest in the success of a company or the success of a project, stakeholder is probably the best word to use, the best general word to use. Yeah. And we can also use sponsors. So the sponsor is the people who have the money, the people who are actually paying for it. And the owners is very similar meaning to sponsors, but basically what it means is the people who are ultimately responsible above the project manager, whose job really is just to lead the team. So we've seen keywords connected there to the people around projects. Now, in the next sentence, this time it's a little different. Only one of these answers is correct. Only one of these answers is correct. So have a look at the sentence, which says, at the end of each project phase, we reach a in the project, which is a moment of particular significance, which marks the end of one part of the project and the start of the next part. And is it milestone, mile mark, milestone, or mile limit? Now, there's a little bit of help here. If you look very carefully at the picture, it might give you a clue to the answer. So, yes, exactly, Giuseppe. Well done. The answer is milestone. That's very clever of you all if you got that right. The milestone, basically a milestone, is literally a road sign. In the olden days, before they had road signs, they used to put a stone at the side of the road and paint the number of miles to the next village on it. So that is a milestone. So it marks a point in your journey where you know where you are. Okay, and the final one in this little quiz section, we go back to 4 words or expressions, and one of them is wrong. Okay, so let's have a look. Which is the wrong word? As the project manager, I need to report to the project. Okay, and it's either sponsor, steering committee, owners, or leaders. So one of these words or terms isn't right. Which one do you think it is? I think we've talked a little bit about the sponsor, which is the person or the people, the organization who own the project on behalf of the overall client, which could be the company. The steering committee is a group of people who are normally managers, and they oversee and support a project from the management level. The owners could be members of the steering committee. They could also be the sponsors. The project leader is normally the name for a project manager. So in fact, the term which is not really right in this case is project leader, which may seem a little bit strange to you, but if you put project leader, normally project leader is the same as project manager. So normally when we talk about report to, if it says I need to report to, then we're talking about who is the next person or people above me in the chain of command. Yeah, so normally the chain of command means the chain that links all of the people from the senior people down to the most junior people. So, for example, in a project at the bottom, you have a team member. Then you have the project manager or the team leader. Then you have the sponsor. And then the sponsor may report to the steering committee. And finally, the steering committee may report to the board of directors. So as you can see, there is a chain of command there. Good. Well done, everybody. And it's great to see so many participating. Yeah. Welcome, Irfan. Yeah, you got Milestone. That was good. That's correct. Okay, let's move on to the third part. And part 3 is about international projects, because I think this international aspect really requires a kind of separate section to itself. And of course, the most important thing, one of the most important things on international projects is communication. Of course, you need to deliver the result. There needs to be a deliverable. But if you're working with people from different countries, different cultures, then, or if you're working with native English speakers, one of the problems that has often been surfaced by people I've spoken to about project management is that native English speakers often dominate team meetings. That is one particular bugbear of non-native speakers. So part of our job at the London School of English is to try and give people the confidence to be able to develop language strategies, to give them the strength, the confidence to be able to participate in these kinds of meetings. Because it is easy for native speakers to dominate otherwise. So let's look at expressions, looking at number 20, we can see there. So you've seen what I said about native English speakers. Not always the case, but very often. So number 20, it says to minimize language barriers, we should always put important communications in writing, which is a useful expression in itself, to minimize language barriers. That is very important aim, and it's something that should be emphasized in international projects, very often isn't. So one of the ways to minimize language barriers is to put something in writing, put it in writing. So don't depend on the conference call and somebody gives you very complicated instructions for something. Just ask them, excuse me, can you put it in writing? Ah, yes, of course. Okay, moving on to number 21. This is adapting to different working styles. So when it comes to time zones, for example, and everybody knows what time zones are. When it's, here we have a good example. When it's 5 to 9 in London, it's 5 to 10 in Paris, and it's 5 to 4 in the morning in New York. So that often causes problems in terms of when you call your meetings. When do you have the meeting? Is it going to be at the time that is convenient to you in London every time? What about the people who are working from Australia or the people who are working in South America? Maybe not as convenient for them. So there is a concept which has become known as sharing the pain. Yeah, so we talk about this, as you can see, when it comes to time zones, it says, let's share the pain. To share the pain means to suffer the inconvenience equally. Meaning, okay, if we have a conference call at 9 in the morning in London one day, then the next time we will have it at 9 in the morning, let's say Australian time. So let's say it inconveniences everybody equally, or at least everybody gets the opportunity to meet at a time which is best for them. Because international projects can be affected by that kind of centralized control if the person who organizes the call always organizes it at a time which is convenient for his group of people or her group of people, but not necessarily everybody else around the world. Okay, the next one, if we look at number 22, let's go back to that. Go back to our list of questions. In number 22, it says, use your team meetings to talk openly about assumptions and expectations. Talk openly. So be open about any concerns you have regarding communication styles or level of formality, for example. Now, this is a question of cultural awareness. I mean, our assumptions mean something that we accept as true or as certain, but without any proof necessarily. Our expectations are what a strong belief we have about what will happen or what will be the case. So in that case, I think we have to be careful about, even the concept of talking openly about assumptions and expectations. I think it's something the project manager needs to be aware of, and if necessary, needs to address. And again, I think Joe will be talking a little bit about this at the end of my talk. So you may want to be open, and this is why in some cases, for somebody who doesn't want to be open about it in a team meeting about differences, they may want to put it in writing and send it maybe to the project leader, just to make the project leader aware of their concerns, because it's a really important factor. If the communication isn't right, the project runs the risk of failing. Okay, moving on to number 23. Being aware of cultural differences is 80% of the solution. This international project is similar to every other project, but with a different team. Get to know your team as individuals, not as their national stereotypes. Okay, so cultural awareness. The word awareness means knowledge or perception of a situation or a fact. So to be aware means to make yourself knowledgeable about something, to perceive it. So know what the differences may be in the style of communication between a Spanish person, for example, and a British person. So get to know, but also get to know your team as individuals, yeah, rather than simply as their national stereotypes. So there are different dimensions to people. They have countries they come from, but they also have personalities. They also have jobs which may affect their communication style. There are a lot of variables involved there. So as you can see, hopefully this is an example of the picture. You can see a diverse team, a team with diverse members from different cultures, different ethnicities, different parts of the world. So really the key is creating that concept of team. Well, we're getting close to the end now, so we're going to move on to a very short part 4, which is, once again, it's a little gap filling exercise. So you're going to see 4 sentences, and let's see if you can fill the gaps. This is 4 expressions, all for number 24. So you're getting bonus expressions here. So what we've got we all deadlines, we don't fall schedule, we the post-project period, and we the longer term results. So in the first space, we would put, if it's a successful project, we meet all deadlines. We meet all deadlines. We have to do that. We have to meet all deadlines. And it's very important that we don't fall behind schedule. So this is what we've seen before. We shouldn't fall behind schedule. And then 2 words which refer to after the project has finished in a way. The first one is to monitor the post-project period. And the final one is to evaluate the longer term results. So of course, a project isn't finished once you've delivered it. There has to be some kind of follow-up afterwards. So monitoring, keeping to schedule, and evaluating are all an important part. Yeah, a very important part of the post-project initiatives or activities. Right, so that leaves us with one more. We've got to 24 expressions, and the last one is really a very human one. Number 25 is when you finish the project, you really ought to say, hooray, well done everybody, we finished the project. So that would be to celebrate the conclusion of the project, and well done everybody, to congratulate each other on the project's success. Because surely the project will not fail with all of you people involved in it, will it? Okay, thank you very much for your attention. That's the end of my talk about project management and some pieces of language connected to it. I'll hand you back to Olga.
Olga, you're muted.
Oh, hi. Hello. I forgot to unmute myself. So thank you very much, John, for this fantastic session with useful and practical expressions for project managers. And we had a lot of participation from our clients. It's really good to see both returning viewers, returning alumni, as well as new people who are joining us today. That's fantastic participation for such a topic as project management. So we actually have a question from Frank, one of our alumni here. And just before we get to this, I wanted to ask and answer this shortly, Frank. Just before, Joe, I wanted to ask you about your tips for international project management. For anybody who's just starting off in this field, what would you advise them to do? You've got a lot of experience, I know. Oh, Joe, I think there's now the mic is muted on your side.
Sorry. So just one of the most important things which John mentioned is about intercultural differences. And I think it's really important that particularly if you are working internationally, you understand the importance of transparency, by which I mean, if you are part of a project team and something is not going well and it's not going to be delivered on time, or it's not going to be delivered at the cost that you originally thought, it's really important to say so as soon as you find that information out. Share it with everybody involved. There are some cultures where I've worked with different people from different cultures where it's they just don't feel comfortable sharing that information, and they hope that if they don't say anything, that in the meantime something will happen to fix the problem, and it rarely gets fixed. It's really important that anybody who is working as part of a project team remembers the word team, and that means that everyone can help, everyone can support. It's not a failure on the part of the person who has bad news. If they have bad news, it's not their fault, they just need to share it. Not sharing it would be seen as a problem. And I think that is often, people can be afraid of sharing something that's a problem. They think, oh, maybe people will think I haven't done this well. That's never the impression. The impression is just, please tell us whenever there is an issue, because that might affect other parts of the problem of the project. So that's the first thing. The other thing is, and again, this is an intercultural point, is the fact that with projects you have regular meetings, don't you? I would say. And every culture has a different perception of what being on time for a meeting is. You know, so being on time in Africa could mean that you're a day late. Being on time in Japan means that you are 15 minutes early. Being on time in England means that you're 5 minutes early. Being on time in Spain might mean you're 20 minutes late. Being on time in Brazil might mean you're half an hour late. It really, really varies. And of course, as Jon said, these are national stereotypes, but there is some truth in them. So make sure that everybody understands what on time means, especially if a lot of the meetings will be conducted virtually. At the moment, everybody's doing everything by Zoom. You might have a time limit on your meeting. Other people might have busy calendars because they're not traveling. This isn't the only meeting they have that day. So it's really, really important for projects to function well and to meet deadlines and for everybody to participate effectively. You need honest communication about problems as well as successes. And you need to understand, you set your project rules about what on time means. And the rest of it does become a lot more easy if you follow those two basic premises.
Thank you, Jo. That's a great answer. And we now have a comment from Frank, who I think, Frank, can you please share, commented at about the same time as Jon, you were talking about sharing the pain expression.
Yes.
So
yes.
Frank commented by saying, pain in the neck.
Well, that's interesting, Frank, because that's probably from a couple of weeks ago when we saw this expression of pain in the neck, and I explained, no, a pain in the neck means something that is very irritating or which annoys you. And you can use it about a thing or an occasion or even a person. You know, for example, this pandemic and all the limitations and restrictions, it's a real pain in the neck. I mean, I really don't like it and I find it quite irritating and annoying. Or you could use it to talk about a politician. I won't use any names here, but you could say, I hate him. I hate the Minister for Health, for example. He's a pain in the neck. So that's what that means. It's an expression of kind of irritation or negativity about a situation or a person or an event. When we talk about share the pain, what it really means is we shouldn't make a certain number of people in the project be inconvenienced by the fact that they have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to attend the project meetings because the project leader is around the other side of the world and has decided that every time the meeting will be at the time most convenient to the project leader. So share the pain means, you know, at least we all have to suffer at some point. It's not a question of the same people suffering. And sharing the pain is really important, actually, because otherwise it can cause resentment, bad feeling, and a sense of inequality among the project team. So yeah, pain in the neck is a different expression.
Thank you, Jon. And just kind of following up on some of the things that were mentioned earlier regarding our training. Jon and Jo, we have quite a number of clients who come to study with us to improve their English because of the increased need to use the language in their project management work. What do you see are their problem areas in English, and how we can help them?
See, a lot of people ask me about active listening skills. And also about note taking, that they find it difficult to listen to what somebody is saying to them, understand it, but also take notes to then be able to communicate to other people who are not at the meeting. So, and that would obviously be a very useful skill in project management because, for example, I might attend a project meeting as a member of the sales and marketing department, but then I will go to my department and have a team meeting and tell them what I found out at this meeting. And people often find that quite a difficult skill. Jon, what would you say?
Well, from my perspective as a trainer, and I've done a lot of business and professional English training courses, that there's something quite special about working with a group of international course participants. And I mean, it's a maximum of 6 people. But in the past, I've had 6 different nationalities sitting around a table from Brazil, Japan, Spain, Switzerland. So from lots and lots of very diverse cultures and backgrounds and jobs. And what happens, I'll give them a simulated meeting and say, okay, we're going to discuss this issue and we need to make a decision in half an hour. Okay, so you run the meeting, somebody's going to chair the meeting, and you can't predict what is going to happen necessarily. And it isn't always comfortable necessarily for everyone in the meeting, but I think the important thing is it's a safe space. It's not a question of you go to a project meeting and you feel very bad afterwards and you have to go back to your office and you think, oh my God, did I do something wrong there? No, what we do is debrief after the meeting and say, okay, if there were problems with communication there, why did they occur? And how can we avoid them occurring in the future? I think understanding why and gaining strategies as to how you can develop a capacity to avoid that kind of thing helps in a very concrete way. So I think, it's invaluable having that experience, because experiential learning, I think, is very important in when we talk about cross-cultural communication, because you can read all the articles and things that you like, but experiencing it is something else. And like I say, it won't necessarily be pleasant, but I won't say it won't be pleasant. It might make you feel a bit uncomfortable, but we debrief it, we talk about it, and you get the chance to explain why you felt uncomfortable, and it breaks down misconceptions about different cultures, and it breaks down this idea of treating people as national stereotypes, which I think we're all guilty of at some point or another. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Great, thank you, Joe and John. And one last question today is, Joe, can you tell us a little bit more about our corporate English training?
Yeah, sure. So what we found over the last year is that although people like to come to us for travel and culture and immerse themselves in London, obviously that hasn't been possible, but business is still business, and business still needs to carry on learning, developing their employees. So increasingly popular is when you have maybe 2 to 6 employees from one company who can't travel, but that form a good little class of their own. And we train them for like 2 hours a week over the course of 6 weeks or 12 weeks, because it fits in their calendar. It's long enough to make progress each week, but short enough that they can still work full time. So that's actually something that's been developed over the last year. We were already doing online training, but that pattern of 2 weeks, 2 hours a week, 4 hours a week as bite-sized learning has really come to the fore for our corporate clients. It's been very useful, we found.
Thank you. And once again, I would like to say thank you to Jon for creating this fantastic content, Jo for all her input and advice on project management, and of course to our fantastic participants who gave so many great answers and also comments. So great to have you here with us. We hope to see you again on our live streams, and then also probably maybe face-to-face in London or online classes. And just stay tuned until we share new topics for the live streams which is coming up.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.